Hey, good morning. How's everyone doing today? I'm so happy to be here. My name is Ana Stephanie Munoz. Thank you for joining our live. It would last around 45 minutes, and we will be talking about find your geographical soulmate, expand your life. If you hear me well, please put like or comment below and tell me from which country you're watching us from. Our guest is a transformational leader and life coach. She's a creation catalyst, soul activist, and geographical soulmate matchmaker. If you want to find out more about our upcoming lives, I'm going to leave you the link so you can join. There, most of them are in Spanish. However, I have some in English, and most of the information I sent is in Spanish. My company, Excede tu Potencial, Exceed Your Potential, has the purpose of helping companies and their employees to refocus stress and anxiety so they can increase their productivity, improve relationships, and results. And as a transformational coach, I help people to free themselves from this mental jail that we create and we build throughout our past experiences in order to find fulfillment, balance, and happiness. So, I'm so happy to introduce you today to my dear friend and colleague, Lori Raggio. Lori, it's great to have you here. To tell you a little bit about her, she's the CEO and founder of Inspire Greatness Coaching and Consulting. And she supports women leaders and entrepreneurs to remove their armor, focus on their authenticity, and engage with the geographical soulmate in order to create the life they desire and deserve. She supports leaders to get outside of their comfort zone so they can access opportunities and possibilities that support them to show up in their highest vibrational energy so they can co-create safe spaces that welcome being human. She's a best-selling author of 2 books, anthologies, and a third to be published soon. Or I don't know if it was already published. You can tell us a little bit about that, Lori. So it's so great to have you here. I'm so happy.
Thank you for inviting me.
Words. Yeah, some words to our audience, please.
Well, I think it's interesting. Stephanie and I met each other. I think it was either November or December of 2019.
December 2019. Yeah.
And so it's so great to be here. And we were on a retreat that we had some very special moments. So it's wonderful to join you today. And yes, the third book anthology came out. I don't know if you can see this. It's called Be the Beacon. This particular book has, I think, 19 different women entrepreneurs who have chapters.
Wow.
And my chapter is the one on geographical soulmate. So it was exciting.
Great. So it's exciting because this is practically your first interview on the book.
Yes, it is my first interview in the book.
That's amazing. I'm so happy. Congratulations. Yeah. Congratulations. And where can we find it? Can we find it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon, yes. And it's called Be the Beacon.
Be the Beacon. Okay.
And I think, I would like to, engage the audience too. And for me, the question is, we think about soulmates, our human soulmates.
Mm-hmm.
And in my thinking, in my experience, is that we also have at least one, if not more, geographical soulmates. And what that is a location or locations that our heart and our soul has called us to. And where we feel so different and so amazing if we are there.
Yeah, I know completely what you're talking about. It has happened to me. It has happened to me on a positive and on a negative way.
Yeah. How, Stephanie? What was that experience?
For me, I would tell you Berlin. I left my heart in Berlin when I lived there. And I first came as to visit before I lived there. I studied there, my master's. And when I came to visit, I liked it, but it was okay, nothing. Yeah. But when I lived there, and every time I come back, it's magical for me. It's a place that not only a lift by my heart, but it's like a connection that it's
Yes.
very difficult to explain.
Isn't it? And where do you actually feel it in your body?
You know, just thinking about it, I feel it like
See?
coming up and down, you know.
Well, and what's interesting, you can see a difference in your facial expressions and everything. And that's kind of it. There's a couple of words that I have used and that other people have used when they talk about these locations.
Mhm.
It's like awe. It's like this feeling of, I like to describe it almost like childlike wonder. Like when you were really tiny and small and growing up, and you were just so curious about everything, and you would spend time and you would just look and you would pick up and you would feel and you would just explore. It's those kind of feelings that people describe when they're in these locations.
Exactly. And it's, I don't know, it's magical. I believe it's magical.
It is.
The other place, well, I have many places that has happened, but I think another one that I find it was very spiritual. It was Stonehenge. You know, I felt when I was there, like I was in the middle of the universe, you know, like you connected completely to everything, like to the planet, to the universe, to yourself, to God, or I don't know. That's another feeling that you mentioned.
It is. But it's this whole connection, that, like you said, sometimes you can't even explain.
No.
And what I found over the last really year and a half or so, especially given COVID, people are looking for these experiences. They now can perhaps work in a variety of different places. And so it's opened up the opportunity to really see, where is that place for me if I don't already know? And just the journey of finding it is almost more important than finding it.
Exactly.
Because there's so many learnings that we can have in that journey process.
The adventures
It
while
is.
getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you described, similar to an amazing kind of relationship, human relationship that we have, when we're with that person, our life is so different. There's just so many opportunities and possibilities. When we're away from that person, there's like this yearning to kind of come
that
back.
You want to come back. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing with these geographies.
And I never thought about it. I just before I kind of like found out about it on the astrological site.
Yes.
When reading my astrological card, and the astrologist said, this is a good place for you to live, and this is not. And I'm like, how curious. Tell me more about it. Yes. And she was started explaining. And that's why I tell you, I know the places that I enjoy visiting and that I enjoy living in, and the ones that I don't.
Right.
And I lived in Panama for 3 years, and it's a beautiful country, but it wasn't the country for me, I got stuck there. Like my energy, I don't know. It was so weird. I met amazing people. I had an awesome time, but it wasn't a match for me.
Yes. And taking the time to figure out what that alignment is and that match. And you mentioned energy, and I know together we've done a lot of work and learned a lot of things about our energy and other people's energies, but it's so important. Because I haven't lived outside of the US, but I've lived in numerous places, and many of them had seasons that were very cold. And I always wondered why I was so almost like depleted of energy during those times. And each time for about 15 years that I came and visited Arizona, I never wanted to leave. And eventually I was like, well, why am I staying someplace that isn't supporting me and isn't, increasing that energy? Exactly. And so June of 2020, during the middle of, COVID for the US, I left, and it was the best thing I could have ever done.
Yeah, I know it was. We haven't talked too much since,
No.
but I know it changed. I mean, you changed completely, and you
Yeah.
look different.
Yes. Yes. And, I want to take it kind of a step further is I know you talk a lot about, your health and,
Mhm.
as your emotional health, your spiritual health, your physical health. And when we're not healthy, what that does to our stress levels. I think geographical health is like this other component or this other realm that incorporates in some ways all of those.
Yeah. Knowing, being close to nature also makes a difference.
Yes.
And with COVID, we notice, especially people that live in very small places,
Yeah.
notice that it wasn't the life they wanted.
Right.
And I know for many people that moved to the countryside, to places where they could continue working, but they were, their children were outside all day long. They had these beautiful big gardens or kind of like farms in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, being more adventurous on the weekends and being more in
Yeah.
contact with nature.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
And
that, in the book chapter, one of the things I talk about is I think that, again, just like a human soulmate, I think when we are spiritually, physically, and emotionally ready,
mhm,
then our geography shows up for us. Similar to
definitely,
our human soul, similar to our human
definitely.
soulmate. So we need to do some internal work. I think that's part of the journey, really getting to know ourselves and, getting into a good place for ourselves, both personally and professionally.
Yeah.
And then, being able to make a move or even to spend time on vacations in these locations to experience them
Mhm.
is just, it's so critical.
It is. It is. But as you say, it's not that I want to live here and it will happen.
No,
It doesn't work like that.
no.
And for me, Panama, it was like when I was very excited when we moved there. And then I realized it wasn't a place for me. But I enjoy it while it lasted.
Yeah.
But and I remember when my husband told me we're going back to Guate. I'm like, when he just told me, I'm like, I don't want to go back. you know
Yeah. Yeah.
because I was really having a great time. And then I thought, okay, things happen for a reason and we're ready to go back and it will be like that. And I think one of the things that's very important, and I don't know in your experience, is to do the grief process of leaving a place. Because I think
Mhm.
that's very important to kind of like, I always talk about this bowl that it's full. So
Yes.
when we have our bowl full of the experiences of the place we're at, we don't have in more place to put the new experiences of the new
Yes.
place we're heading to. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not that the geographical location is bad. It's just that we still have our
Yes.
bowls full from the last
From the
experience.
last one. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
And
and
I
I know you talk about, grieving due to stress and due to relationships. Take the geography or wherever you're living as another relationship,
Exactly. Exactly.
right? And so you've gotten used to experiences there, people there. I know when I moved from Maryland to Arizona, I mean, I had been in Maryland for 22 years. And so I had
Wow.
friends, I had, coworkers, my whole identity for that length of time, was tied to that location.
Exactly.
So yes, I
And
needed
that's
to do
something
some of
very
that.
important that you mentioned, identity.
Yeah.
I believe it happens the same to you when you talk to your friends, especially friends that have lived their entire life in the
Yeah.
same location.
Yes.
They cannot even imagine living somewhere else. They
Right.
can't.
Right.
And because your identity becomes part of where you live.
Yes. Yes.
And that's, I believe, one of the toughest things to go through doing a grief process of leaving a location. And some people, and I noticed that, here in Latin America, I have noticed that with the people from Venezuela that had to leave their country,
Mm-hmm.
many of them, I wouldn't say all, because some really did the grief and knew that it was the best, not only, like mentally knew that it was the
Mhm.
best decision to leave Venezuela, but actually in their hearts, I mean,
Yeah.
the alignment of this is the best thing. But at the same time, they really left Venezuela. But
Mhm.
there's so many that really never left it, and it's sad. I find it sad
Yeah.
because I know they're not getting the best out of the new
Right.
place they're leaving,
Sure. Sure.
and they're still trying to find, like everything related to Venezuela, like hang out with people from Venezuela, do everything, like, and that's great because you have your culture and you have your food
Yeah.
and you continue doing it. But there is another side of the new location that gives you a different energy,
Mhm.
a different way of living. And
Yeah.
I have noticed many people that are not even grateful of having a new life and a new beginning of something they know they cannot go back to Venezuela.
Right. Right.
How do you see that? Because I know for
Yeah,
people it's so difficult.
it's making that space, right? Well, and I think the other thing that you and I definitely know is that the process of transformation starts with commitment. And so part of that grieving process is making that true commitment to that new location. And
That's true.
what do you need to let go of that no longer serves you in that new location? And I think there's so many you know, really parallels to
Mhm.
human relationships and these geographical relationships. And,
Yeah.
you know, at 60 years old, I'm single for the, first time after being married for 32 years and working with a relationship coach. And so what we're going through is exactly what I help my clients go through when they're looking for a new geography. It's kind of
So
going through
amazing.
that grief process, looking at your identity not being coupled with whoever that was before in your relationship, a marriage or a significant other or a geography, looking at what are your requirements and what are your non-negotiables
Yeah.
and what's kind of like the icing on the cake, and then really committing to that next journey
Yeah.
to find that soul mate, human or geography. So there's like all of these parallels that are
Yeah.
so cool, to experience.
And you know what I would add as well? What do you have to give? You know,
Yes.
like what
Yeah.
is your offering to this relationship, to this new geography? What are you bringing to the table?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know in the geographies that you've had just like this, amazing kind of spiritual connection to, but when I first moved to Arizona, I saw things that I had to really kind of stop and almost like initially second guess. So one day it was very early, the sun was just coming up.
Mhm.
I have two huskies and I was taking them for a walk, and there in this opening area, there were two black wolves
Mhm.
with
Wow.
yellow eyes.
Wow.
And the experience was no one was frightened. They weren't, I wasn't, my dogs weren't, but there was like this initial, like direct eye contact, kind of like almost like a welcome.
Wow.
And then they, kind of went on their way and we went on our way. But I've seen other things like that and other experiences. And so I think it's also, can you open yourself up to just see what's around you? Kind of like that childlike wonder. Can you forget judgment? Can you forget, um, having to conform, all of those things, and just allow yourself to be present and experience?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and you know that I believe when you're in nature, it can be really magical if you really do that. If you're really present, you start seeing things that you have never
Yes.
seen before.
Yes.
And one example is what you just said. you feel you have a connection, because there you had the connection with nature, with the animals, with yourself.
Yes.
It's like the complete alignment of it all.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard to describe, because it's a connection that you don't have anywhere else.
Right. Right.
It's like the connection with it all, I would say.
Yes. And think about if that was possible. I think that's the biggest message that I really have to people is if that feeling was possible on a consistent basis,
Yeah.
think about what your life would be like,
Oof.
what your work would be like. It's just
completely different. It
yes.
changes everything, because you are in a total different place.
Mhm.
And I believe, well, many things that you said, but that are very important. First, be present.
Mhm.
Second, be aware of what's going on. It's like listen like closely, because it's not only, oh, I'm looking at this, but okay, what is this? And
Mhm.
there are always some signals as well, some signs,
Yes.
some even I always, when I see an animal that I normally don't see, I always go to the spiritual meaning of
Yes.
seeing it. And it's
Yeah.
amazing as well, the messages that are there, and follow the synchronicities,
Yes.
because when you just allow things to be and to happen, it, it starts a process of change
Mhm.
that you cannot even understand
Right. Right.
inside of yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
And I believe these last 2 years since COVID started, we've been having more opportunities to be in that place.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things that I'm talking about right now, so there might be people in the audience who might be interested in this, but I will be next year doing a book anthology. I want to bring people stories who are at some point in the journey. They might be in the beginning of their journey and finding their geographical soulmate. They might have already found it, but to really describe the experiences because I
Oh,
want people to know that it's possible
that, mhm.
and then what is possible once they engage. And so there's probably about 10 or 15 people already that I could just kind of invite
That's
because
great.
that's what they've done in the
That's
last
great.
year.
That's
So,
great.
I would love for people from all over the world, to be a part of this book anthology.
Oh yeah,
So there
I'm
might be,
there.
yeah, I mean,
I'm
Stephanie,
there.
absolutely. So there might be people who are joining us or will be listening that might be interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, I'm going to leave you Lori's contact here, so you can get in touch with her and let her know that you're interested in collaborating in her book anthology, because
Yeah.
I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And I want to ask the audience, because they've been a little bit quiet today. Have you ever thought about how a location can support your family, your business, and I'm not saying, if you live in a country and you have a bad situation, you should escape to another place, because that's not it either.
Right.
And it happened to me when I got divorced, that the first thing I wanted to do, I was here in Guatemala and I wanted to go to Germany, back to Germany. And then I thought, I need to heal it here,
Yeah.
because if I go, it's like
Gonna take.
escaping and not, confronting.
Yeah.
And then when I feel I'm healed, then I will see if I can go back to Germany. But now I want to heal here, because everything happened here. Otherwise,
Mm,
it's like it never happened. And I really wanted to heal it, because I didn't know if I was going to be in a relationship again. And I just needed to forgive him, forgive myself,
mm,
and overcome all the situation after being together for 12 years. So a little bit like like what we all go through when we get divorced. That
Mhm.
I believe that if you want to change the pattern and if you want to have a healthy relationship later on, if any, because it doesn't mean you are going at the end, you never know, and maybe you enjoy yourself being by yourself better than being with someone else. It doesn't matter, but being in peace.
Yeah.
So how do you think it supports you? If you can let us know. And while you tell us that, Lori, I wanted you to tell us what's possible when we're living in an ideal environment. I mean, what have you discovered of doing this
Yeah.
work, and what people have achieved being in the correct
Yeah.
location?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen everything from people finding that human or humans, it could be friend, it could be soulmate, um, their ability to truly be present and show up in their greatest self in their jobs.
Mhm.
And it's because internally they're more connected and they're more aligned. And so the energy that they're giving off
Mhm.
to people that they're interacting with is at such a different level.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, I've seen people totally take off in their businesses. Um, just almost anything that you can think of being possible is
Mhm.
possible when you're showing up that way.
And how can you choose, or how do you know which location is the right one
Mm.
for you?
One of the things, and why I have the book even in front of me, is that I've included lots of different questions for people to be thinking about and answering for themselves. So I can just give you a sense of some that I put in here. It's almost like, what environments do you thrive in? Is
Mhm.
it cooler, hotter, sunny, dry, humid, tropical? Do you like the beach? Do you like the sand? Do you like the water? Do you like the desert? Do you like the trees? Does it need to be seasons? So just even starting out with some of those. Um, Something else that I suggested, if you haven't been to a location where you just feel like you described, Stephanie, when you're there, start looking in like even travel magazines, videos, look up online and just see what draws you in. Like what gets you excited? What pictures, you know, get you curious even? Talk to other people. How did they
Mhm.
find their geographical soulmate? Um, Experiment, go someplace totally different that you have ever been before. Um, some other, questions that I put in the chapter is, does this geography bring out the best in you?
Mhm. I felt that in Australia.
Yeah.
It's a pity it's at the end of the world, but I really, really love it.
Where is your happy place? I mean, that's,
Mhm.
sometimes people refer to it as their happy place. Where do you feel calm, peaceful, but energized? You know,
Oh, yeah.
um,
Atitlan Lake. What?
yeah, I mean, some people
And
will
I was
say,
thinking of the places I love. While you just ask the questions, I'm
right,
already
right.
answering them.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's like 22 questions in this chapter. So, I mean,
Mhm.
and it's just a start, just to kind of think about, to open up to.
Yeah.
What other one? Um, oh, do you have a strong sense of connection or belonging that almost like takes your breath away when you're in that location?
Yeah. And you have it that a lot with the cultures, certain cultures,
Yes.
kind of like you kind of like connect easily.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a variety of ways to start. Um, but being open to experiences is really critical to this process.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're not open, this is not for you.
It's not
Definitely.
the right time.
No, 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 no.
Yeah,
And it's okay. It's
absolutely.
nothing bad. It's we're in different parts of our processes,
Yeah,
and it's fair and it's okay. and be with it. And if
Mhm.
because I know many people that would never ever leave their home country or their place where they
Mhm.
live, and that's great too, because
Yeah.
that place has worked for you guys, and so
Yes.
that's good too. And I know other people that say I cannot leave due to different situations, and
Mhm.
that's another thing. But I think there, if you feel that there's something disconnected, I believe, and I don't know what you think, Lori, you need to find your connection to the place, not
Yes.
only because you were born there or because your family is there, but something more deep inside yourself that connects you
Yes.
to the place.
Yeah. Well, and I again think about how we deal with our physical health. We eat properly, drink in moderation, do some type of exercise,
Hmm.
so we're taking care of that part of ourselves. We all know that that's important. We know that our emotional health is important. Um, we know our spiritual health is important. So we
Hmm.
already focus on doing things that support those parts of our life. This
Hmm.
is another dimension that can support us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that it's very important, and we don't even realize it
No.
because we're used to the place where we live.
Yeah.
It's like the energy of your home as well, or
Yes.
if you're renting, what's the energy of the house you live in?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. And like we say in Spanish, the walls talk. I think in English you say that as well, right?
Yes.
The walls talk. The energy is stuck in there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
all energy related.
It's all we are all energy. Even if we don't like it or if we don't agree with it, we're energy.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. Are there any other tips that you would give the audience so they can start thinking about this and how their geographical soulmate can support them in having a better life?
There's a couple of other things that I also mentioned in the chapter, but there's so many different meetups now that things are opening up a little bit more. I know some of them had gone virtual, some of them are starting to do kind of like a hybrid, but there are meetups that are, focused on experiencing different locations.
Yeah.
That might be something that someone might be interested in. And also, I mean, there are individuals like myself. There's coaches, that will also help people to kind of work through the process.
Yeah.
Um, Recently, there was a woman who read the chapter in my book, and she said, "Oh my goodness, I have a friend who spouse recently died,
Hmm.
and she knows that within the next year, she wants to make a change in where she lives." And so she
Wow.
kind of reached out and said, you know, "I'm not sure what I'm looking for yet, but is this something that you can kind of support me through?" And so,
That's amazing.
because of a loss, she's kind of, looking at her entire life and considering, what's the next best thing for her.
Exactly.
So,
No, and that's very important.
yeah.
And what happens, when you have, and I talk about, especially in our countries, that you have to leave your country due to different situations. It can be violence, it could be a political thing, it can be, and
Yeah.
that happens a lot in our countries in Latin America. And I have friends that have gone to, because of violence, or
Mhm.
some have been, things happen to their family, so they leave the country. What is the recommendation there? Because then the other thing I see, and that's a problem actually, is that not because you want to live, let's say, in the States,
Right.
does it mean that I can, because I don't have the papers to
I
do it. I don't
know.
have a
I
visa,
know.
and so what could be a good thing to start? And not I'm not, and then I'm not talking about applying to a visa,
Right.
but because I think, and I truly believe that if that place is for you, things will happen.
I agree. I
Mhm.
agree. And I think in those situations, which has not been an experience I personally have had, so I don't know. But I would think that there would be other things at that point that you might want to focus on and take the opportunity to learn about yourself. Maybe there might be some grieving that needs to be done. There might be some other things that need to be attended to, and maybe just be curious about, where might be a location that would support me in my next kind of chapter.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you cannot choose too much. It's like this is the location you're going to.
Yeah.
And it happened to a colleague of mine at work. This was
Mm,
like 15 years ago. They killed the father, and a
mm,
month later, they killed the brother because the brother was trying to find out what happened to his
mm.
father, and apparently he found out. And
Oh,
so the next day, they were heading to Canada. And it took them, even though they requested asylum because it was a very, it was
sure.
violence, because of violence, it took them 10 years to get the
Wow.
visa. And it was asylum what they were requesting.
Wow.
So I know, and here there were many issues to be worked because they didn't want to leave their home country.
Right.
They had
Right.
to. And in grief of two dear family
Mm.
members, and the grief of having to
Having
leave
to
your
leave.
country.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
And as we were talking previously, with people from Venezuela, especially, is that you have your bowl full and you don't want to empty it or
Yeah.
make space because you feel that if you do, you will kind of like forget about where you come from,
Mm.
or kind of like not um, like feel that you're part of it or something. I don't
Right.
know,
Right.
like you kind of like feel you lose your identity in a way or something.
Yeah.
And how
Yeah.
do you how would you recommend to deal with that part
Mm.
besides working on grief? Because I think that's the hardest part, when you have to leave a country and you
Yeah.
really don't want to, but you have to.
Well, and in some ways, I mean, are you ever really 100% leaving it? Because you've got so much inside. It's your memories, it's your experiences,
It's your
it's
blood.
all those things that you're taking with you no matter where you go. Yeah, I think that would be really difficult. I'm not sure what would be the best,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
because I believe in those situations, it's not that I want to go here. It's just
Yeah,
like, where
yeah,
can I go that that I will be able to be and that will receive me or
right,
something.
right. And I would say to certainly try not to do that alone, so whether it's support of whatever type would be available to help, because it would be definitely a journey.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it can be harder because of the situation of
Hmm.
you're not living because you want to, but because you have to.
Because you have to.
So it
Yeah.
changes completely.
Right.
But I truly believe that even though you can find your geographical soulmate, even if something
Mhm.
like that happens. But I think, and this is the interesting part, people don't really know that there can be a geographical soulmate that even can make more sense than the country they had to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's sometimes, not sometimes, many times, just trusting the process and the support and kind of the guidance that I think is available to us. Kind of getting out of our own way
Mhm.
and trusting that,
Our heads, getting out of our heads.
definitely, definitely.
This is amazing, Lori. I love talking about this topic with you because, and especially now that
Yeah.
we're figuring out different ways to live, because
Yeah.
we realize that the way we were living before
Yeah.
and I think a lot of things open up in this during all this time, during these 2 years, almost 2 years, 1.5 years of craziness. um, However, I believe we are being more in the being than in the doing, and we're
Yes.
heading toward that direction, and to align ourselves more like with our food, with our exercise, with the people we hang out with the work we do,
Yes.
and now, and this is very important, with the place we live,
Yeah,
because it also can make all the difference.
it can. It can.
Some final words to our audience before we say goodbye, Lori.
Yeah, just I would say be curious wherever you are. Be curious. At least allow yourself to think about this, contemplate this. Just, have conversations about it. And if anyone is, certainly interested in talking more, exploring more, they can certainly reach out to me.
Excellent. I left your contact details on the
Thank
chat.
you.
So if you want to contact Lori, you can find her there. I want to remember you guys that yesterday we started the Manage Your Emotions Challenge, 5-day challenge. You still can join. It's in Spanish, however, but if you want to join, I left also the link there. It's amazing. Yesterday was amazing. And the recordings are available there, so you can do the homeworks. We have homeworks, so we start training our emotions, so we get in control of our emotions instead of the emotions controlling us. So, so Lori, thank you so
Oh,
much
thank
for
you,
being here
Stephanie.
today. It
Thank
was
you.
great talking to you
I
and
know we
seeing
could
you
talk
again.
forever.
I know. But congratulations for your new book.
Oh, thank
And
you.
the focus, what you're helping people with. I think this is so important today. And I think it's something that people don't never thought about, how important it is where you live and how much of a difference it makes when it's completely aligned to not only who you are, but your life purpose. And sometimes
Yes.
being in your geographical soulmate is where you find your
Yes.
life purpose.
Yes. Yeah.
So thank you a lot.
Thank
Thank the
you.
audience and have a great day and a great rest of the week. Bye, everyone.